Hi, welcome to this Excel tutorial video. Today this video is a continuation of the series of videos where we're creating a bespoke data entry form. This is the fourth video, and depending on what you are looking for, if you're looking for something particular, then maybe this video is going to help. Otherwise, it might be sensible to go back to the beginning of the first video and watch them in a series. I'll put links to those videos in the description of this one. This video is going to continue exactly where the end of video 3 finished, and in this video we're going to try to add a new column to our data, a date column, and we're going to add that column then to our form and get it all working, adding a date, dealing with dates, and ideally getting this extra column to work as the other three columns do at the minute. This video was recorded in May 2021 using Excel 365. So at the end of the last video, we were in a position where we had a form which was triggered by selecting or clicking this shape. The form allowed us to add a new person, and it would add the person here in these fields here, where we could then select that person and make an amendment. We can clear this button here to clear everything, and then when we're happy we can exit the form. So let us now think about adding a new column here to column D. We'll put it, like I said, as a start date column. First of all, we need to move this shape out the way, and if I try and click on this shape, you can see when my cursor goes over, it changes into a little hand. If I click that shape, it's going to open the form. That's not what I want to do. So in order to move this, if I right click it, I get this menu pop up here. Then if I click away from the menu, you'll see my shape is still selected here, and I can now grab it and move it out the way a little bit. Now I'll come here and I'll put start date here, and just for completeness, just to complete these other 12 entries, I'm going to put a date in here, and just then at least we've got information already for the pre-existing entries. Now let's go about amending our form to cater for this new column. So we go to our developer tab, we click on our Visual Basic button here, and on the left hand side under forms we double click on our user data entry form, and as we've done previously, let's make this a little bit bigger and add a new control to this form. So I'm just drag this down. I'm going to drag and highlight those three buttons and move them down, and then I'm going to grab a text box, pop it into position there, and I'm going to grab a label and put it into position here. And if you remember, we need to name these correctly. Move that out of the way. So right now our new label is called label 2. I don't want it to be called label 2. I want it to be called LBL start date, and our caption is going to be start date, and our text box is going to be TXT start date. Okay. Now what we want to do, kind of a limitation at the minute in Excel, depending on your version of Excel, is there's no date picker that you can select in here. If you right click on this bit of the control box here of the toolbox, you can click on additional controls. You get another box pop up, and it gives you options of different controls that you can choose to add to this menu here. And like I said, depending on your version, you might have something called Microsoft Date and Time Picker. I don't in this version of Excel, so we're going to have to deal with things in a different way. So I cancel that. Initially, I know that I want my user to insert a date in a particular format, and that format is day, day, month, month, year, 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 with slashes in between. So in order to kind of help that on this form, I'm going to give an indicator on my label. So I'm going to put in brackets day, day, slash, month, month, slash, year, 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 year. And that will give them an idea here of the format that we want this in. What might make it a little bit easier as well is if when you show the form and the form initially appears on screen, it actually has a date in there, maybe today's date, and it will show that format that we want it in. It'll allow the user just to change the actual date that's appeared on screen rather than having to type it afresh. So in order to do that, if we just double click on the form in here, it'll take us to our user form activate function or procedure, and then we're going to, all it does is call refresh names. If we go to refresh names, in refresh names, let us now say txt start date dot text equals and we've got this thing called date, and it's an Excel function that returns the current date. So when the form loads, put a date in that new text box that we've created. So let's try that. If I click on that, there it is, and it's in the format we want it: day, month, yeah. So that means that somebody can come in here and say, okay, yeah, that person started on the 17th. They don't have to worry about the formatting because the format is already there. Right, let's now exit that, and we'll add the logic to insert that into our new column. So let's go back to Visual Basic, double click on form. The logic is in the add button, so we'll double click on the add button and it takes us to this bit. And we can copy what's already there almost. So if we just copy that line here, we can then insert it below and say, okay, range D. Everything else, this is already kind of previously working logic, so we can leave that as it is. The value of D, whatever line it is, 14 in this next example, is going to be the text in txt start date. So it should be as simple as that. Now it's not going to be quite as simple as that. We're going to look at a couple of issues in a second, but generally it should be as simple as that. So let us try this out for size. So if I click on that, and we'll say try this one. There's our date. If I click add, it's gone in and there's our date. However, you'll notice that the date has gone in as a text value rather than as a date value, because if it was a date value, Excel would justify it. There's a few ways of dealing with this, and the easiest way of dealing with this is what I'm going to demonstrate to you now. If I go back to my Visual Basic, there is a function or method called CDate. In fact, if I just put C and I press Control and space, there's CDate, there's C double, C decimal, there should be C string. What this is it's a converter or a caster. So it changes. So let's imagine you had the number 1 is just a number, but if you said that, it will make the number 1 a bit of text rather than a number. It converts that whatever's in the brackets to a string, to text. So what we can do in order to get this to work is we can say our text box doesn't contain text, it contains a date. So we do CDate, and we put our text box in the brackets. Now let's try that. Does this work? It's gone in as a date. Lovely. We can fix that formatting ideally just by selecting that. Oh no. In fact, we can do it by clicking into it and pressing enter. That should do it. There you go. So, so by doing CDate, that's fixed that date when it gets inserted. However, what that doesn't do is it doesn't stop us from putting in a date that's not right. So if I add that, actually yes, it has broken here because we tried to cast it to a date. So if I just go to debug, it's this bit here that's failed because it's tried to change the text in here to a date, and that date doesn't exist. So it's broken it. So it's caused an error. What we want to do is try and catch that. We want to try and stop that error from happening, and we want a nice message to appear to the user to say your date's in the wrong format. So let's look at doing that. If I just double click on my add button, before we start doing this work here, let us do a check to see if our date is valid. So let's say if we've got this thing called IsDate. There's a few different ises. So if I do is, you've got isNumeric, IsDate, isEmpty. There's a few different things here that basically does a check to see whether it is the format that you want. So isNumeric will do a check to see if the value you provided is a number or not. And the same thing with isDate. Is this a valid date or not? So isDate, then in brackets, I've got to give the date that I want it to validate. And it's my text box entry. So I can say if isDate equals false. Oops, excuse me, I'm going to put then. Now I'm going to put a message box to screen. I'm going to put a little box that pops up, and to do that we do message box and we do a prompt. So the prompt is the message that appears. So we say invalid date, format should be day, month of, yeah. Okay, please check. Then if I put a comma, the next thing is what we want it to show. So I'm going to put a critical message here because it's basically stopped our process from working. Then if I put a comma, this is the title of the little box. So I'll just put validation error, and I'll stop that. That will do for now. So if isDate is false, then it's going to bring this message up, and then I'll put else. Type, and then at the end here I'll put end if. And so if it's false, it will bring this up. If it's true, then it will carry on and process the addition. So let's just try that out. Oh, you see, it did try and break. It did insert those first three, but then it broke at this bit here. So let's get rid of that. Let's try it again. Let's break this, and we'll just say. And we get a validation error, which is exactly what we want. So now we say, oh yeah, I see, okay. What would be handy actually is when it's validated, it said, hold on, your date's wrong. It would be handy if the cursor went back into that field. So let's just do that as well. So let's go back to our Visual Basic. So in here, in this bit here where it says it's false, it's failed validation, let us say txt start date dot, there's this thing called SetFocus, and that puts your cursor in that control. So let us now check that out. Oh, in fact, there's our date that we already put in before. So let's just break it again. Add invalid date, this is your format, click OK. And now our cursor's in that box. And I can go, oh yeah, of course it is. What I meant to say was the 12th. Add. Fabulous. That's the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you've got any comments, that would be appreciated. Thanks for your time. See you next time.